The Nun of Saint Tamara. In the remote hills of Romania stood Saint Tamara's Convent, an ancient structure wrapped in shadow and legend. Locals whispered tales of Sister Genevieve, a pious nun who had lived there centuries ago. She was said to have descended into madness after claiming she had visions of a demon lurking within the convent. The stories said she disappeared one stormy night, but her anguished spirit never truly left. Clara, an ambitious journalist, was sent to Saint Tamara's by her editor to investigate rumors of paranormal activity after a viral video showed eerie lights flickering in its abandoned halls. Intrigued by the challenge, Clara packed her camera, flashlight, and recorder, dismissing the legends as superstitious nonsense. The drive to the convent was unnerving. Dense forests bordered the narrow road, and the howling wind carried an almost human-like wail. As Clara approached the gates, she noticed how the structure loomed against the darkened sky, its tall spires like skeletal fingers clawing at the heavens. Inside, the air was suffocatingly cold despite the summer season. Dust-covered pews lined the chapel, and faded paintings of saints seemed to watch Clara's every move. She set up her equipment and decided to spend the night in the convent's west wing. As midnight approached, strange occurrences began. The faint sound of chanting echoed through the stone corridors, though the building was supposed to be empty. Footsteps resounded above her, yet when she rushed to investigate, she found only darkness. Suddenly, her camera captured a figure at the end of the hallway, a nun in a tattered habit, her face obscured by a shadowy veil. Clara called out, but the figure didn't move. When she approached, it vanished into thin air, leaving behind the faint scent of burning candles. The next day, Clara scoured the convent's library and unearthed a journal belonging to Sister Genevieve. Its pages were filled with frantic writings. "The demon hides among us, cloaked in faith." The final entry chilled her to the core. "If I fail, it will claim me. Pray for my soul." Later, she discovered a bricked-up door behind a crumbling altar. With her curiosity outweighing her fear, she broke through the barrier. Beyond it was a hidden chamber containing an iron cross, broken chains, and scratch marks gouged deep into the walls. That evening, Clara decided to explore the convent's east wing. As she entered, she noticed the walls were covered in faint, illegible markings. Some looked like prayers, others resembled warnings. A draft carried the faint smell of sulfur, making her cough. Deeper into the east wing, Clara stumbled upon an ornate mirror, its surface covered in grime. When she wiped it clean, her reflection stared back with a chilling difference. Her eyes were hollow and black, just like Sister Genevieve's. Startled, she dropped the flashlight, and when she looked back at the mirror, it was shattered. As she picked up the broken pieces, Clara noticed one shard reflected something behind her. The silhouette of a nun, her hands clasped in prayer. When Clara spun around, no one was there, but the sound of soft laughter filled the air. In another part of the convent, Clara found a small locked room labeled Lacrima, which she later learned meant tears. The lock was rusted but gave way with some effort. Inside, the walls were smeared with red handprints, and the sound of faint sobbing began to grow louder. Clara called out, asking if someone was there. The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by a whisper, "You should leave before she finds you." Suddenly, a rosary swung from the ceiling, slamming into her face. The force knocked her to the ground, and when she looked up, the door had slammed shut. For what felt like hours, she was trapped, listening to footsteps circling the room but seeing no one. Clara managed to escape, but her recorder caught a disturbing chant in Latin that she couldn't decipher. When she replayed it, the air around her grew cold, and shadows seemed to crawl along the walls. The words burned in her mind. Libera nos a malo. Deliver us from evil. She consulted a local priest, Father André, who reluctantly revealed an old tale. Sister Genevieve had prayed obsessively in that room, begging for deliverance from the demon she believed possessed her. He warned Clara that Genevieve's soul was likely still bound to the convent, and she wasn't alone. The next night, Clara awoke at 3 a.m., the witching hour, to find her equipment scattered across the room. Her camera was recording on its own, pointed at the door. On the screen, she saw a figure pacing just outside. As she approached the door, it swung open violently, revealing the ghostly form of Sister Genevieve. Her veil lifted, exposing a face split in two, one side angelic, the other grotesquely burned. "Why did you come here?" the nun screamed, her voice a mix of sorrow and fury. After the encounter, Clara decided to leave the convent, but her car wouldn't start. The engine sputtered, and the headlights flickered. In the dim glow, she saw Genevieve standing at the edge of the forest, pointing toward the chapel. Clara hesitated but felt compelled to follow. Inside the chapel, Clara found an ancient scroll hidden beneath the altar. It was a prayer of exorcism, but parts of it were crossed out in blood. A sudden gust of wind extinguished her flashlight, leaving her in total darkness. As Clara tried to read the scroll, the air grew unbearably heavy. The floor beneath her cracked open, revealing a fiery abyss. A deep, guttural voice echoed, "She belongs to me now." Clara screamed as shadowy hands reached for her. Just as they grabbed her, she held up the iron cross. The shadows recoiled, but the voice laughed. "You cannot banish me. I was invited." The laughter faded, replaced by Sister Genevieve's anguished cries. Clara realized that the nun had unknowingly summoned the demon centuries ago, and now it was tied to the convent forever. With every ounce of strength, Clara climbed out of the abyss and ran toward the main doors. The shadows pursued her, whispering her name. She barely escaped as the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Back home, Clara reviewed her footage. Most of it was corrupted, but one clip remained clear. It showed Sister Genevieve standing in the hidden chamber, her face turned directly toward the camera. In a voice dripping with malice, she hissed, "You cannot escape." From that day on, Clara was never the same. Shadows seemed to follow her, and at night, she often woke to the faint sound of chanting. The legend of the nun had not only haunted the convent, but now lived within her, a curse she could never break. The end.